So our first of two presentations is from Mike Centers of Titus MRF Services. Mike is the founder, CEO, CFO, and president of Titus. Titus is an equipment and maintenance service company that supports existing material recovery facilities, or MRF infrastructure. Mike has successfully written and was rewarded 5 grants through Cal Recycle. Titus has worked on approximately 5 other grants as service provider.
So all right, Zenny, if you see the first one, it says Titus MRF Services, and primarily the introduction was great, so I'll move to the second one. What we attempt to do, on the second one, you see a picture of a typical MRF. That's a large MRF in San Francisco. And we design, build, and install that equipment. That's our primary source of revenue. And then we also work a secondary MRF in Los Angeles, where we look at recycling low volume materials and how to recycle materials. Look at the second picture, that's expanded polystyrene and polystyrene that we've Bale and we ship to market. We've developed a market between the range of 6 to 8 cents a pound. And then finally, we look at stakeholder connections, similar to what we're doing today, which is presenting to Zero Waste Org in Washington. I want to thank you for the opportunity. Next slide, please. The next slide shows why we think this is important. If we divert more from landfill, we secure valuable resources. By doing so, we reduce the generation of greenhouse gases, and we eliminate any potential ocean pollution leakage from cycles. And the next slide, if you look at it, is our mission. Our mission is to create a pathway for closing the loop for all material collected for the benefit of all stakeholders. And the fifth slide, I'll spend a little bit more time on, if you can get to that one. This is a slide that shows who our main customer is, and that is the MRF. The MRF is a material recovery facility. And if you look on that left-hand line, that's pretty much what a MRF sorts: mixed waste paper, newspaper, cardboard, glass, aluminum cans, steel cans, and PET. And they do an excellent job with about 80 to 90% of the material that they bring into their facility. Where they have a difficult time sorting is the low volume material, typically known as mixed plastics and cartons, and also anything that goes through their system but is not sorted. We consider that to be yield loss. Every machine creates yield loss, and our machines we design, they have that same challenge, is that even though we want to take out all the aluminum cans, we don't get all of them. So what we're advocating is that you take those last 3 streams and you do a regional system. And by using a regional system, you consolidate all that material at one secondary MRF, and then that MRF with a different design sorts that material. So if you go to slide 6, it shows the area around Portland, and all those blue dots is the current MRFs that sort all the material that is collected at a resident's home. And those MRFs have been there for over 10 years, and I can almost say over 20, because what they do is they optimize the route for those drivers who pick up that material, and they need to send it to the nearest MRF. And so they do a great job in consolidating material. And they also do a great job, as I mentioned 2 slides earlier, actually the last slide, of sorting out and sending to market paper, PET, aluminum, HDPE, a lot of major commodities. But it's difficult for them to sort low volume commodities. If they're only getting, for this example, 0.12% of expanded polystyrene and polystyrene over a 4,000 ton MRF, let's say that's monthly, they're only going to sort about 4.8 tons of that per month. And so take them almost a quarter year or more to generate 1 truckload. If we consolidate all that material at one location, a regional secondary MRF, then we would have 8,500 tons. The amount of polystyrene, expanded polystyrene in that would be 1%. So we would create 85 tons or 4 truckloads a month. And there's always been a discussion about recycling, but the chicken and egg, what comes first? Do you develop the end market, or do you develop the supply? And we already have the supply. We just have to regionalize it so that we can create truckload quantities monthly in a quality level that can be used by end users. Next slide, please. The other reason we need to do this is because recycling is dynamic. The ton that we recycled 7 years ago is not the same ton that our industry recycles today. We've had a big drop in news. You guys all know why. It's the iPad, it's the ability to read online. We've had a huge increase in cardboard because of a lot of material, a lot of people are buying from home and a lot of it's packaged in cardboard. We see a lot of lightweighting going on and shifting from cans to plastics. All these create a challenge for the MRF industry. And we believe that our regional secondary MRF can help alleviate those challenges. So if you go to slide number 8, this is kind of what we are recommending is we optimize the current recycling infrastructure. And we do that by adding a regional secondary MRF. It'll provide flexibility to our customers, which are the MRFs. And it'll provide some flexibility to the brand industry who continues to change their package design. Then we optimize the business model by limiting the risk of this by charging the MRFs a fee to sort for that material. That fee has got to be around the cost of landfill, because that way their choice is to come to us because it's economically a better choice. And then by doing so, we develop additional revenue streams, and then we share those streams with the MRFs. So if we go to slide 9, this is an example of how we would take like from 5 to 10 MRFs in the given region. We'd take all their machine yield loss, which would include all the 3 through 7 mixed plastics and all their bulky rigids. And then we would put them through a specially designed secondary MRF. We would first take out all the commodities that we possibly can, because we believe the best use of this material is to be recycled. And then we would manage the remaining material either by sending it to a responsible landfill, which really wasn't happening when we were shipping it overseas, or finding new products and creating either feedstocks or fuels for chemical recycling or pyrolysis or any of those types of new recycling technologies that are coming online. So if we go to slide 10, this tells you a little bit about the region we're discussing now, which is the Portland, Washington, or Portland, Seattle region. And this is the typical residual that we received from a MRF. And as you can see, about 50% of it is quality material that could be recycled. And the remaining 49 to 50% is our residual, which we would, at this point, send to a responsible landfill or develop markets for it. The second slide, number 11, is the typical mixed plastics bale. So in mixed plastics, you have less residual, in this case, about 36%, and you have more polypropylene, more HTP, more higher quality plastics. Both of these would be handled through a secondary MRF. And based on our study that we did in Portland, we came to the conclusion under slide number 12 that a regional secondary MRF in Oregon and Washington area would recover about 50,000 tons per year of additional recyclables. We would increase the recyclability for each city that the MRF serves by 3 to 6% additional diversion, and we reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 130,000 tons per year. The next slide, 13, talks about how these helps different stakeholders, and we highlighted in green municipalities and residents. If we have the primary MRFs sort everything that they can possibly sort and send it direct to a mill or a reclaimer or a smelter, and then send the rest of their yield to a secondary MRF, we basically create blue bin accountability for that entire region. And for the Seattle, Portland market, that's about 3 to 5 million people. We reduce the environmental impacts of this material because it's no longer going to landfill or overseas, and we've proven cycle and diversion rates. I also have in the top right-hand corner, we talk about the benefits for MRFs by extending their ability to adapt to an evolving ton and increase their operational flexibility. And given we're sharing the revenue with them, they're still in the game. Whereas if they send it to a landfill, there's no additional benefit. So going to slide 14, what does this mean for Washington? Well, if we can create some accountability for the blue bin, we create an opportunity for product stewardship. We protect the existing recycling programs and give them an opportunity to expand. We find markets for low volume materials. They're low volume because the volume is not large enough until we regionalize the sort for specific plastics. We include improved diversion rates and we create jobs in the area. So on line 15, this is the 15th slide, what do we need to move forward? We currently have an equity commitment of $10 million. We're seeking approximately another 40 million in order to put these in 3 facilities. We're looking for public partnerships, either for grants, permitting assistance, siting and legislation, and we're looking for MRF feedstock agreements. And then by achieving that, we can go to slide 16. These are the impact that we're looking for is a blue bin accountability for the West Coast, approximately 25 million consumers. And we help the existing MRF infrastructure by not only adapting to the ever-changing blue bin, but giving the MRFs relevancy moving forward for as the packaging changes. We conserve valuable resources, reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 330,000 tons a year, and reduce leakage to marine environment. We create jobs and we encourage product stewardship. The next slide, 17, is our information as well as a rendition of kind of what our equipment would look like in a secondary MRF. And at this point, I'm ready to take questions.
Great. Thanks so much, Mike, for that. And sorry about the sort of technical issues at the beginning. I think we're all sort of like getting used to kind of these sort of Zoom interludes. So I appreciate you persevering with us. I think Heather Trim might have a question. Heather, if you want to unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you, Mike. We really want you to come to our region. And my question is the geographic scope, and I think you sort of talked about this, but like how much material makes it feasible? Like, because we already have operations kind of going in Canada. So then you have, I saw on your green circle on that slide you just had there, you know, it included Seattle and Portland, and then you had kind of a green circle in California. So what is your sort of need of geographic area? And then how do you factor in, I guess, transportation and things like that? And what about Idaho and Montana and whatnot?
So for we look at a waste shed based on population base. So we're looking for like 5 million as a population base. So if you take Seattle and Portland, and a lot of the material pulls from Spokane to Portland or to Seattle. And so those are the major hubs. So as long as we're stationed somewhere between those 2 major cities, we would be attractive from a logistics standpoint. And our waste shed is larger. We look at our solution as a regional solution because we literally are not just taking mixed plastics. We're taking everything the primary MRF chooses not to sort. If the primary MRF has technology that they can put in where it makes sense to sort it, we encourage that. However, if they can't sort it, they send it to a secondary MRF. And by the economies of scale of using the volumes from 10 MRFs or more, you find a lot more value quicker and you create truckload quantities quicker. And that's kind of the innovation in itself.
I have a question that's coming around the greenhouse gas benefits. I wondered whether you can give a sense of how many additional kind of transport journeys there are between MRFs and the secondary MRF, and whether you calculated the greenhouse gas impacts of those.
The way we did the greenhouse gas impact is a couple of things. One is we looked at the material going directly to landfill or being recycled. And so the delta of greenhouse gas emission savings by having 50% of what we send to a landfill now being recovered and recycled. And there really isn't an additional charge to send it to a secondary MRF versus a landfill, because there's already a charge to take the material from a MRF and ship it to a landfill. Now, instead of doing that, they're shipping it to a secondary MRF. So there isn't a huge transportation impact. And based on where we put this, which is usually close to a regional market, we're closer than the landfill is. So we actually would mitigate some transportation costs.
I wonder whether you could reflect further on the sort of the reaction from the existing MRF community around Portland. How, you know, how did they react to your findings?
Well, I would say two ways. One is they weren't surprised about the amount of volume of material that is still in the stream. And, you know, if you've worked for MRF for longer than 6 months, you can tell the challenges that MRFs have, specifically in the Portland area, with the total volume they have to sort and the amount of product that comes daily. It's an inelastic system, regardless of what's going on at the ports, or if we have a new China sword, or if we have zero in revenue based on commodity pricing due to the pandemic. So there's a lot of challenges. There was definitely a concern about whether or not we would be, let's say, what would be a great term, kind of taking some of the business away. But if you look at the way we establish it, we're giving them the opportunity, at MRF, the opportunity to focus on selling direct, high quality products, commodities that are established monthly, and then everything they can't sort by material type because it's economically not viable. If they send to a secondary MRF and we share back the revenue, they're in a win-win position every time. And we're still working with them to bring that about, but that is the goal. Is Titus has been a company that's the MRF industry for the past 20 years. We look at the secondary MRF with the same mindset.
Great. And final question, because we have 90 seconds left. I wonder whether you can talk a bit more about your New England project that I think was just recently announced.
Yeah, we've been asked by the American Chemistry Council to come in there and take samples from existing material recovery facilities, work stakeholder agreements on what a secondary MRF would mean in that region, and then what is the opportunity value based on these samples. So we'll be starting that. It's been a little slow because of the travel restrictions, and now with the weather, we probably won't have results till about springtime of 2021.
Great. And do you think those results might be sort of widely shared, or is this more of a private trial with the ACC?
I would expect it would be very similar to how we shared in the Portland SORT project, so pretty widely shared.
Great. Thanks so much. And I have to keep us on time, so I'm going to have to say thanks for your presentation. It was super interesting, Mike. Really appreciate it.